Welcome to the Gearbox Podcast. I'm your host, Jimmy Purdy. On this podcast, we're not just exploring the latest trends and technologies in the automotive industry, we're also getting real about the journey. Yes, the bumpy road of mistakes and lessons learned hard along the way.
This is the Gearbox Podcast.
So Mr. Andrew, is it Clement? Clement,
Yes, Clement.
I
don't know how to pronounce my own name, dude. My name is Andrew. I'm from the YouTube channel Rogue Wrenching. I'm also in the Changing the Industry podcast group. I'm in Jimmy's. I work on cars. I solve problems. I bring solutions, and I talk and I complain a lot.
As I think the majority, especially in that group. Well, that's shots fired right there. How about that one, huh?
Well, you had a big transition. Clickbait.
Yeah, you had a big transition here recently, didn't you?
Yeah, so I just moved from the great state of Arizona. So I was actually like right next door to you, and we just moved to southwestern Missouri. So I'm in the Springfield, Missouri area now. I've been at independent shops my entire career, and most recently, I now work for a franchise shop. So I work for the local Christian Brothers Automotive franchise here in Springfield, and it's a little bit of a change. It's interesting to see things done through kind of the franchise model. I'm picky about where I work, so I don't like to work for anybody that doesn't provide a really good work environment, as well as obviously I like being paid for what I do. So I've been at some really good independent shops. I've had some really good experiences, and wasn't really looking for a franchise position. But this franchise came in at about 20% more money than any independent in the area offered me. And it's kind of hard to turn down. Yeah, it wasn't a small amount, which kind of surprised me, because like I'm actually, if you don't watch my YouTube channel, I'm actually decently good at what I do. I'm really solid in diagnostics and drivability, and I specialize in light duty diesel repair. And I can do stuff that most guys can't, and do it well. But some shops don't like to offer big bucks, especially for someone moving from out of town, which I guess I can understand.
I think the ego gets in the way too. I think a lot of independent shops, the owners just have a hard time hiring someone that's smarter than them, or better than them, or faster than them, right? Like the seasoned ones, sure, I mean, they get it. And the ones that never been in the shop is obviously different, but there's a pretty big majority of guys that just, they want someone to make sure they can do checks and balances, and they can kind of look over their shoulder and see where they are in the process. And if someone's smarter than them, then they don't understand their process or how they're getting from point A to point B. And I think they get scared, or not scared, but they just don't know. And I think that turns them off. I don't know. It's pretty interesting though.
Yeah, well, and actually on that subject, I ran into a situation yesterday. Actually, I've got a 2007 Dodge 1-ton diesel with Cummins in it, and it's got an intermittent problem with an intermittent associated check engine light and then electronic throttle control light. And the problem is that the accelerator pedal position sensor is intermittently dropping one of the signals. And it only does it for a fraction of a second, but you'll be driving and it'll go to a dead pedal. Mm-hmm. These are super, super common for the accelerator pedal position sensor to fail, and all of the aftermarket ones are junk. Like, you have to get an OE part or don't even bother fixing it. So in my write-up, I specifically call out an OE part, and I get handed are we allowed to say manufacturer brands here?
Sure. Yeah, whatever.
Can I dump on somebody? I get handed a Duralast box.
Well, that's not dumping on anybody. That's just the truth, man.
That's just facts. Straight facts.
I was just hoping you were going to throw Dorman under the bus again, because it's like those guys are trying really freaking hard, man.
They've got some good stuff, but
at least they're trying.
And I appreciate that. So I get handed a Duralast box, and I go up to my advisor and I go, dude, what happened to an OE part? And he tells me, oh, well, it's kind of back ordered. We can't really get one. So we're good. We're just going to put this one in. And I said, okay. So I put it in. And instead we took the fault that was intermittent and we went from, you got to drive it for about 10 minutes to experience the fault to as soon as you plug it in, it's got the fault and it's got a dead pedal. So bad out of the box. Unplug it, take it back to him, say, hey, this one's defective. Get me something else. So he orders me another one, which I'm pretty sure these are all Standard Motor Products rebrands. And so we get
Yeah.
one from Napa. It's the box is the same shape. The numbers on the part are the same size, same part number on the part. I put that one in. It's bad out of the box. I take it back. I go, dude, this is junk. I need an OE one. And he's like, well, we've changed this part several times now. Are you sure that you are correct in your diagnosis? And I said, yeah, dude, I'm 100%. And like I had to argue with my service advisor because he has never worked with anybody around diesel. He's never worked on these things at all. And it's foreign to him that you could get several parts back to back that are bad out of the box. And especially in a post-COVID world with electrical parts, especially electrical parts for diesels, for some reason, nobody can seem to get those right except the OE. But it's frustrating
I think it's
when
for everything.
yeah, it's my experience has been more heavily in the diesel world than general automotive, although for the last 5 years I've been mostly just automotive, so I don't even know what I am anymore. I'm just a really tall guy that complains a lot. But part quality is frustrating, and it's frustrating to deal with someone when I'm not perfect. I'm not always right, but I know this part's bad, and I've tested it and I've proven it, and now we've put this thing in twice. I'm paid flat rate. I don't get paid extra for doing this 3 and 4 times.
Right.
So now we're on our fourth part, and we finally got an aftermarket one today that worked. I get handed a box. I put it in. It works. I test drive the vehicle. All is well. Ready to ship it. I go to turn the keys into my advisor, and he goes, "Oh, actually, you weren't supposed to get handed that part. We had to next day air an OE part for you." So anyway, all that being said, ego is a frustrating thing in the shop, which if anybody who knows me is listening to this, you're going to roll your eyes because I have a big ego, and
What goes around comes
sometimes it
around,
gets in
man.
the way. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's just and it's all different, right? And it's all for different reasons. The biggest part, I think, of ego is the insecurity, right? Like the bigger the ego, the more insecure the person is, right? So there's like
Sure.
levels, right? Which makes it almost worse, And like in that kind of example is like, well, yeah, of course I'm not 100% sure. An assessment or a diagnostic is not like it's rare that you have a
If I
100%
had a crystal ball, you
confirmation.
think I'd be fixing cars? Like,
Right.
really? I,
This is the best
you know,
guess, man. Like, of course it could be wrong, but like, let's start with step one and make sure you at least get me a known good test part, because that's,
yeah.
we're not
Well,
we're not parts changers, but I mean, we do need a known good part to test our theory when we come to a conclusion, right?
exactly. Well, and that was the challenge, and he was kind of, poking back a little bit. And I said, dude, I made sure I unplugged the aftermarket one. I took the original part I took out of this truck that we know is an intermittent. I plugged it in. Code goes away. Plug it into the aftermarket one. I can clear the code, and it hard resets immediately. And if you look at the voltage coming out of the two different signals, it's reading 1% throttle with no application of the pedal on one of them, which is what it should be, and the other one's reading almost 13% throttle. Should be 1 or 2%. So it's like,
Just like what's the common denominator there, right?
yeah, exactly. And if we can do this 6 times, like, and I should get paid for that every single stinking time. Doesn't matter how long it takes me because I've done it 4 times now, and I'm getting really fast at this pedal, which, to be fair, it's 2 bolts. But still.
It's yeah. And then a lot of that, I think that's a problem in the industry too, is a lot of that gets kind of brushed under the rug, right? I mean, doing
Yeah.
transmissions most of my life, I screwed up a lot, and I've R&R'd a lot of transmissions, and I've gotten really good at pulling certain models out, mainly because I wasn't doing them right. So if I can pull, I mean, I can get a 4L60 out of a Chevy pickup in under 25 minutes, right? It's like the last one I did, it was like 22 minutes or something like that I timed, and it's
See,
like,
that's impressive. It
so
takes me
do
like
yeah,
almost an hour to get one of those out.
So do I get paid 20 minutes for that job, right? Like, no,
No, you
right?
shouldn't. And that's I think the struggle that it's difficult, I think, when we as an industry are so accustomed to charging the unit of measure that we use is not this is the dollar amount to fix your car. It's this is 2.6 hours of labor or whatever the number is. And so we're so accustomed to charging based on time, using time as our unit of measure. Whereas if you take someone such as yourself, like you said, doing a transmission in a Chevy, and you can get it done in 20 minutes, but the book says that it should be 4.2 hours. We're so used to seeing that number in hours and not dollars. It's not this transmission's $500 to R&R. It's 3.5 hours to R&R. And so when you do it in 20
Right.
minutes, I think a lot of people get kind of hung up on that. And the reality is that you've got, I mean, I don't even, how many years have you been doing transmissions? How many years have you been in this industry? I guess actually.
No, it's gonna be rolling close to 15 by now.
Yeah. So
About
you've
15.
you've been in the game a while. You've got a ton of experience under your belt. You've done a ton of work to build your skill set to be where it is today. And we shouldn't penalize you for being good at what you do.
Right.
Right. So the fact that you're good, the fact that you're fast shouldn't come out of your check or your shop's profit margin. And I think the same thing applies to somebody like me. So there's my favorite examples. I really like Duramax water pumps because they pay like 6.5 hours. Again,
Hmm.
I just talked about not liking the time thing, but that's the industry we work in right now.
Right.
Pay 6.5 hours. The last one I did in like an hour and 25 minutes. And it's like, I've just done them enough that I'm fast. But when I get handed a ticket that says 6.5 hours and I turn it in 2 hours, I get this kind of look from the service advisors like, hey, are we going to cut the time back? It's like, why should I not get paid for my experience? If a seasoned carpenter can build a house faster than an apprentice carpenter, the price shouldn't go down because he can do it faster, because the value is not in the time that is spent. The value is in the finished product.
And you can even take that a step further. I mean, the value is in time. So if it can be done faster, you should be paying more, right? If someone
Yeah.
says, "Hey, your house is going to be built in 6 months," someone else comes and does it in 4 months, you should be paying them more to get it done in
Yeah.
4 months because now
We don't
now
pay
you get
them
to live in your
less.
house sooner. Yeah, but
Exactly.
you know what
Which,
I mean? Like time is money.
yeah,
Like if your time is valuable, you should be paying someone to get it done in half the time, you know. And
exactly.
also, and then I'll take that and flip the script a little bit. So as I move, into the role of being an owner and having 5, 6 technicians in the shop, that's what makes it really difficult for me to see a transmission take 3.5, 4 hours, pull it out, right? And
Yeah.
in my mind, I can do it in 20 minutes, and that's a really hard thing for me personally. But I see that in a lot of other owners as well, and I talk to a lot of other people in the industry, right? And it's not unusual to have that mindset where I can do it. And then you either get upset and you hold these standards that are just not achievable because this technician didn't live that life that you lived, or you just step in and do it yourself because you get so frustrated that you don't even know how to communicate enough to be effective. So you just step in and you start pulling transmissions out because you're like, I can't even watch him take 3 hours to do it. I'll just do it. Right. And
Yeah.
that's a big problem.
Yeah, well, and that becomes an issue both from the management side. So I am currently employed as a technician. The goal is, I'm not sure if shop ownership is where I want to end up, but some sort of business ownership is where I want to be. So I'm thinking about more. I'm thinking about things from an owner perspective. But that's one of the things that you run into with a lot of these technician turned shop owners, which is, I think, probably the vast majority of our industry is that.
Hmm.
And you get that, well, it's physically painful for me to watch you take 3 hours to do a job I know I can do in 20 minutes. But when whether it's you as an owner or me as a senior technician steps in and just does it and doesn't take the time to maybe point out the shortcuts or point out what they're doing wrong, or an error in their process, or whatever it is, the right tool for the job, we're doing ourselves a disservice because we're setting that person up for failure, because we're not teaching them how to be better. We're just saying, step aside, let me do it. And that's great for today, but what about next week when you're out sick and they have no idea what they're doing? And I think taking time to be intentional about building up the next generation of technicians and obviously we're speaking specifically today about this industry, but technician service advisors, taking time to train people and show them the right way to do it is important. And when we take that learning opportunity away from them, we are not only doing them a disservice, but we're doing ourselves a disservice in the long run.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that just nails the point and drives it home as far as what your mindset set should be as a manager, right? As you're moving from the manager to the ownership role, a lot of the technicians turned shop owners miss all that. There's a lot of, they call it going back and filling the gaps, right? Like
Yeah.
you're tech, you open a shop, you start making money, you're fixing cars, life's great, busy. I need some help. You get some help. Oh man, the phone's ringing. You get more help. You start building this kind of I don't want to call it a house of cards, but it kind of is, right? And eventually you got to kind of step back and go back and fill all that area up. And a lot of that stepping back is learning how to be a manager, and just exactly what you were saying there, like being able to manage people for one, but to know, hey, I need to write these processes down, and for me personally, it was like I just assumed we were all on this path together, like my world is between my two ears, like that's it. Like I didn't realize like all the other paths everyone's taking. Like I just assumed everybody could pull the transmission out. Like I thought once you had five,
Yeah,
six,
like, can't
seven
you just
years,
do what I can do? Like, I've been doing this
yeah.
since I was, knee high to a
And you've
duck.
been doing it 6 years. I've been doing it for 6 years. So we're the same, right? And then it's like, but it's not, right? Because you're just
I I learned that
ignorant.
lesson very clearly a number of years ago. I was working for a shop, and I had kind of been moved into the role where I was working on 6-liter Power Strokes. I was in a diesel specialty shop, and so we were doing a set of 6-liter head gaskets. We were doing like one or two of these a week, and I was doing them all. I got kind of shoehorned into this role when they had let somebody else go that was doing them all. Anyways, so I got really good. So we had menued out what we called a full meal deal. So it's head gaskets, head studs. We were definitely not modifying federally controlled emission systems.
Of course not.
Oil cooler, front cover, all
The
basically
old,
all of
the
the
old
common
bulletproof.
failure points.
Yeah.
Yeah, which with a little bit of a tweak, we did a couple of tweaks that we did our own way that I think are better. And based on the number of trucks that we fixed that way, I think the record speaks for itself that my method's a little better than the branded bulletproof method, but neither here nor there. The point is, we've been doing this for a long time. At the time, I was 22, and we hired someone that was, I think, 21. He was like 6 months younger than me, and he was the 6-liter guy at a Ford dealer down in California. I was working in Oregon at the time, and I was a little like kind of nervous about it because I was like, man, is this guy going to push me off, or like, I'm the guy. Is this guy going to come in and be the guy and push me out, right? And this kid took, oh my gosh, it was a set of glow plugs on a 6-liter, which in a normal world is like hour tops if it fights you. It's quick and easy. And this dude took it was like 3 or 4 hours to do the job. And when he was done, he took the glow plug wires, the ones that carry all the current to make the plug turn bright orange because there's so much current, and he had mashed them under a bracket and shorted them to the frame, and the truck wouldn't start. And that was when I realized that just because I've been doing this at this point, I've been in this industry for about 8 years. Just because I have 8 years of experience, I can work circles around almost every single technician I've ever met that has my experience level. And a lot of that is because of the opportunity that I had when I first started, because I didn't do oil changes for 2 years. I've never done tires as a tire tech. I have probably done 10 sets of tires in my entire career because I got thrown into a mix in a shop where they needed someone who could actually do production work. And it was kind of a trial by fire, sink or swim type situation. And I was able to swim and took that opportunity and ran with it. So, the variety of what I worked on makes me a much more, I guess, well-rounded technician is kind of what I've always shot for. But to kind of circle back and stop just bragging about how wonderful of a technician I am, which I am fabulous. But talking about,
Well, I think
processes and having,
I was gonna say, I think that just brings up a good point of like talking about building technicians from the inside and having processes put in place. That's all well and good, but honestly, it's really trial by fire, right? And I had a
oh yeah,
similar situation where I was like out of the local community college where I got my smog license. I was smogging cars, right? And I fell into a transmission shop that needed a builder, and so I started building transmissions, right? And in my mind, I'm like, well, this has got to be the peak of automotive like repair, right? You don't, and so this is what I
Dude,
want
those
because I
things are
want to
magic to me. I don't know how
I
they
want to
work.
find the hardest thing there is in the industry, and I want to learn how to do it. And it's like this is a great opportunity. And I had a transmission on the bench, and it was like, here's the book, and good luck, right? And I made a lot of mistakes. Like I said, I pulled a lot of transmissions back out, a lot, right, over and over and over. I'd be 3, 4 in the morning. I'm like, and it was just for me. Like, right, the owner didn't care. Like, oh, we'll deal with it in the morning. I'm like, no, this is for me. Like, I'm pulling it back out. I'll be here all night till I get it right. And that was just what I wanted. I wanted to learn how to do it and do it right. And I could not stand going home knowing that it was not right. A lot of that's ego, right? Like a lot of that is ego.
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
wasn't getting paid for it or nothing. And I see that a lot that's missed with the younger generation or the younger techs coming in. They get hit once or twice and all of a sudden they're on, the job hunt. Like, well, maybe I'll go do HVAC because this is really hard. It's like, everything's going to be hard, man. Like
I was gonna say
everything.
everything is hard. I think this industry is definitely hard, and I just want to, because I did not do the whole like stay and work all night thing because I got to get it right. Like that's not something I've done. I've worked my fair share of late nights, but a late night for me is usually like 30 to 40 minutes late. Like I was never the guy that stayed hours and hours late, or went home with a problem and spent 6 hours researching something. Like I can count on my hands, probably on one hand, the number of times that I had a problem that I couldn't figure out that bothered me enough to take time to figure it out at home. And I know that some, I think, older technicians or shop owners would kind of look down on that and go, really, you don't care enough about this trade or this industry to better yourself on your own time. And I think that obviously you don't know me super well on a personal level, but what I can do and what I've accomplished in this trade, I think speaks that you don't have to do the late nights and lose your mind and your soul and your family to this career to be successful.
No,
You
absolutely
just
not.
have to show up on time, which apparently is hard these days, coming from the guy who was late last week. But hey, neither here nor there. Show up on time and bust your butt while you're there. Sitting on your phone all day, thinking about other stuff, doing it, like, if you can just be focused while you're at work and put all of your energy into being the best technician that you can be, I think that does volumes for you.
Yeah,
But
I would never expect anybody to take that path, right? Like any of my guys here, like it gets to a point, right, when their production starts dropping and they're like 60% product, and they're putting 5 hours a day in and they keep getting their butt kicked by diags. It's like, okay, so this is what I did, right? This is how I helped myself, is go home and I would watch videos and I would do, just do all the research in the world when you're at home. Because what are you doing? Watching TV anyway? Like take that downtime and try to learn a little bit, right?
yeah,
That I said that was just
and
me. That was just my ego that kept me there. The handful of
sure,
nights that I had to do that, it was like I just can't go. Like I'll drive home and I would turn around and go back to the shop because I was like, there's no way I'm just gonna be laying in bed. Like I'm not gonna sleep. So like that was just my wiring in my brain. But I don't ever would want that to be like the expectation. You know what I'm saying? Like that was just like
yeah,
I'm just wound up so tight right now. I got to get back down there. But over the years, I've come to the point like, yeah, when I leave, like, I'm not doing that shit anymore. If something really interests me and I'm like, I really want to know how that works, like, then I'll do the research because I'm like genuinely interested in
sure,
how whatever it is that works. But for the most part, it's like, it's funny you say that because in the last couple months, I think maybe even beginning of this year, I started realizing I get back to the shop the next day. Oh man, I totally forgot about that problem. Oh man, I should have been researching last night to get ready for this. And it's like, I don't need to. And it's like, it's become more of a normal, like, let's get back to work the next day. Like, oh, that's right. That freaking nightmare. Or that freaking guy got a call. He's pissed off about whatever. And it's like, just ignore it. It,
yeah,
it just makes
and
it
that's
better the
something that's
next day.
interesting. So the franchise that I work for now is it's really cool for a couple reasons. One, there's some, like, I guess, corporate pressure to do certain things. So I've got, obviously I get well paid for what I do, and there's benefits and stuff that corporate just kind of pushes down and says this is what you're going to do as far as benefits for the employees. Like one of the abnormal things that my franchise offers is they don't have a like a health insurance coverage, but they give me a like health insurance reimbursement, which is effectively a bonus every month that covers my cost to go out and buy health insurance. So that's one
Mm.
thing that's different about working where I work. But the other thing is that the guy that I work for, the guy that owns the franchise that I work for, has never been a technician. So he comes out of, I think, construction management is what he did before he got into this. And he's owned this franchise and been doing this for well over a decade now. So he's, I think, worked through some of the kinks. But there's so many people that started in this industry that weren't able to leave work at work. And the franchise I work for, which is, again, part of that is the corporate pressure. Part of that is, I think, the way someone who's not a technician turned shop owner thinks is at 5 o'clock, I'm putting my tools up, I'm walking out. Generally speaking, every technician is out of the building by 5:05, and work stays at work, and I think that's really important. So I've got 3 little kids and a beautiful wife, and I don't like taking away their family time to put into work drama. And it's really nice to be in an environment that supports punch out, leave it at work. Don't take problems home with you.
Yeah.
A shop owner I used to work for many years ago gave me a piece of advice, which I think is good advice. There were a lot of things I didn't like about this shop owner, but his advice, or what he said was, he said, if you can't make a good living for yourself working 40 hours a week, you're doing something wrong. And I think if you're a technician who's listening to this and you're thinking to yourself, like, man, I'm working 50, 60 hours a week just to make enough money to get by, there's better opportunities out there. There are good shops that do pay well, that do value you. And you've got to find owners that understand that work stays at work. And when we're done at the end of the day, nobody's going to worry about it. The owner shouldn't be going home and stressing about, how are we going to get this cam out or whatever. It's
Yeah.
that's a tomorrow problem. And it's okay for things to be a tomorrow problem. Like, you're not a bad technician. You're not a bad manager. Like, if it just gets to the end of the day and it's like, okay, we're out of time to solve this problem today, it's going to go into tomorrow. And that's okay.
But also on the flip side of that, and so what I've heard in the pipeline, a little birdie told me that you're a really good technician. I don't know where I heard that from, but I've
I don't
heard
know who told you that.
I've heard that you're like really good at what you do.
Yeah. I know a guy.
So to that point, you are speaking from that perspective also, right? So
Sure.
that can't be an all-encompassing kind of blanket statement, because there are technicians that need to step up their game, right?
Yeah.
If you're hearing that,
I've
like, you might
experienced.
need to look inside a little bit. Like, look in the mirror first.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I've
like, you
experienced
might
both
be the
sides of
problem.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And again, I look at life. I look at this industry based on, my experience as a technician and what I've seen and what I've done and all of those sorts of things. Right. So my previous shop, which great shop, great group of guys. I got to be careful what I say because I was on the Jaded Mechanic podcast. And I said some, we'll just call them disrespectful things about the people that I work with, because I was like, there's no way they're ever going to like want to better themselves and be listening to this podcast. And then like 5 months later, my shop foreman, who was one of the guys I was complaining about, he had to give me a ride from somewhere. I dropped a car off or something. And I noticed on his phone that he's listening to the Jaded Mechanic podcast. And I was
What are
like,
the odds
hey,
of that?
buddy, you're going to hear me say some really complaining things about you. So I'm sorry. Anyways, but that shop that I work for.
It's for the clicks anyway. That's all Jeff does
Yeah,
anything for. It's just for the clicks, huh?
fair.
Shots
But
fired
that shop
again.
was really bad about not applying pressure to technicians. So it was, everybody was paid an hourly wage, which I'm personally a big fan of. But there wasn't really any pressure to technicians. So we would have, my shop foreman, we'd get a car in that was like a brake job that was going to be realistically hour and a half worth of work that would come in at 3:00 in the afternoon and be promised by the end of the day with a technician available. And my foreman always got uncomfortable promising things out, which, neither here nor there, but there was always this feeling in that shop of, we don't want to apply too much pressure to the technicians. And that's, I think, a nice theory.
Was that a negative thing for you though? Did that feel like it was?
It was because I find that I can produce the most work the most efficiently when I have a stack of 6 cars that all have to be done, in 10 minutes. Like when there is pressure to get something done, I find that I'm able to move through stuff quickly, and it's really good when I have a stack of cars on me, because if I run into a problem on one, I'm not waiting to go, waiting on a part or something like that. I can just jump right over and jump on the next thing. So like big picture for the day, I can get way more done if you load me up with tickets at the beginning of the day, instead of, all right, here's one ticket, and when you're done with that, we'll give you another one. So I like the pressure because I find that I perform better under pressure, but there's a fine balance between letting a fire under someone and lighting them on fire. And I think that's a hard line for managers to walk, especially in this industry, because we've got to push cars out. Because if we're not fixing cars, the lights don't stay on, the doors don't stay open, nobody has a job if we can't get cars fixed. So that obviously has to be important. But then also the ability to say, you know what, that's a tomorrow problem, leave work at work, go home to your family and just decompress a little bit. There's a balance to be had there, and I'm no expert in figuring out how to find that. I feel like I've been in the ditch on both sides of that road, and I think where I'm at now is pretty close to perfect.
Right in the middle, though. I mean, it's an interesting theory because it's something we talk about a lot too. Is how to hold people accountable, right? And say, hey,
Yeah.
you screwed up, like go back, do it again. And that's a hard thing for the manager side, right? You put the manager hat on and you got to go out and have that difficult conversation, which doesn't need to be difficult, but it is. It's just hard. It's hard
Yeah.
especially from like one technician to another, right? Maybe it's easier if you're a shop foreman that's never been right and on the floor, but they also they don't have the ability to relate either. So being a technician, turn a shop owner, you have that edge, but you also have that
Sure.
mental block, right? Where you don't want to talk down to
100%.
someone. You understand how hard it is. You understand all that stuff. But on the flip side, as much as say I hated having someone constantly giving me pressure when I was a technician, and I don't want to breed that atmosphere because I hated it. I also look back and think about all those transmissions I had back out, all that work that I was able to get out, all that learning that I did, right? And it was because of that pressure. But also I was
Yeah.
like, I really like I'm gonna go do this for myself so that I don't have someone breathing down my neck all the time. So it's like that weird dichotomy of like you're like you're trying to have cultivate a culture where all your technicians don't have to deal with what you're dealing with, but the only reason why I got to where I am is because of the things I had to deal with. Does that make sense? Like it's just such a weird roundabout thing, you know?
Yeah, and it's really hard. And I think I do kind of want to touch on the idea or the concept of technician accountability, because I think that's a really it's an interesting topic to discuss, because I worked for my previous shop out in Arizona. The technician turned shop owner that I worked for, very why kind of like the way our brains work was very similar. So for him and for I, when if I make a mistake, like, you can yell at me, you can beat me up all day, like I don't, it whatever. No one's harder on me than me when I make a mistake. Like, it frustrates me to no end when I screw something up. I want to make it right. Like, and that's the way my mind works, right? But then I've also worked around technicians that are, we're 20 hours deep into a timing job, and I got that chain of tooth off. I wasn't paying attention, Oh well, whatever. I'll just take it back up. I'm just getting paid anyway, and I don't know what the best answer is as far as technician accountability. So for me, if you send me home because I'm in trouble because I screwed up, whatever, it's like, what does that really do? Let's just solve the problem and move on. But then I've also worked around technicians that didn't improve. I worked with a technician. I worked with him for a little over 3 years, and the mistakes that I saw him making when I first started were the exact same mistakes that he was making 3 years later. There was no accountability to push him to grow more. And And the sentiment that I gathered from the owner was, I would like to get rid of him. I'd like to fire him, get somebody else to fill his shoes, but there's no one else I can hire that can do what he can do. And it
So
wasn't
now
even that he was.
as I say, is that the fault of the technician or is that the fault of the management? Because that
I would,
scenario that you just laid out is so common, like unbelievably,
yeah,
unrealistically common. And it's like everyone points the finger at each other. Well, the technician's not motivated. Oh, well, the manager's not doing a good job, or the owner's not doing a good job. It's like, where's
yeah.
like everyone's pointing the
I think
fingers,
there's, I mean, the fact of the matter, I think, is that there's enough blame to go around to everybody in that situation, because like on the one hand, like, yeah, you should be bettering yourself, you know, for goodness sakes, just go out and watch some Scanner Danner. Like, you don't even have to pay for the premium. Like, just go to his YouTube channel and watch some stuff and like learn some basic
right?
things, right?
Yep.
You know, on the other hand, if we've cultivated an environment where, you know, making mistakes is normal. The shop I worked for, all the guys were hourly, and we, like, the whole shop, we averaged, if we measured productivity as a percentage. So if we looked at um, payroll hours paid to technicians versus hours billed from the shop, we were running pretty consistently in the 50 to 60% efficient range. And which blows my mind, because I know that I can crank through work quickly. You know, I know I can beat the book time. I'm typically 120-ish% efficient on everything that I do, but it's there's things that management wants to blame technicians for that are actually management problems. And I think it's human nature to try to blame somebody else for your problem, right? You know, if I went slow on this job, I'm gonna, well, the truck was rusted or we had some issue with it. You know, it's not my fault that it was slow. When the reality is, you know, maybe my mind wasn't in my work today and I was thinking about other things, and that's why I was dragging. So I don't know what the solution is, but the problem abounds. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think it's just mindset, really. And to be an effective manager, you really have to be able to get in the mindset of each individual person, you know. And that was one of the things actually today we were just talking. Larry Anderson, he'd brought that up as getting, you know, individual mental pictures of everybody. Like, you can't just kind of blanket statement everything. You can't just have a policy that says, "Well, you screwed up, you're going home for the rest of the day," then, right? Like, because that's not going to work for
Yeah.
you. That might work for somebody
Yeah.
else, right? That'll
Sure.
get him to go home and think about it. But realistically, it's not going to work for a probably very small percentage. That's going to be an effective tactic. But the point is, like, you got to learn like the different ways that you really can get under people's skin. I mean, ultimately, and I think some of the best shop owners are the best guys out there, multi shop owners. They know how to be an effective leader in that sense of really just manipulating people. I mean, and it sounds bad, like it's a bad
I
negative
say it sounds
connotation to say
bad, but it's what
you're
has to be
manipulating,
done.
but it's true. Like the best salespeople, right? The best owners, the best leaders are really just great manipulators. They know how to take people and make them do the things that they want them to do without them knowing they're doing it. Right? Like,
Yeah.
and it's so interesting that way because it's like you think about it and it sounds so negative that you don't want to be that person, but you have to be if you want to be good at it. I'm sure there's other ways to
Yeah.
do it, but I mean, you get the point.
Yeah. And I think that's important, is management is, I think, in the automotive industry, we treat, I'm not even sure how to I had this concept. I'm trying to figure out how to put it into words to explain what I'm thinking. Like, I've seen so many times where we put a manager into place who is qualified based on their knowledge of how to do the job, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. So
Mm-hmm.
we'll move a guy up to shop foreman because he's really good at fixing cars, right? But we don't take into account someone's ability or skill set in actually doing, you know, management type work. So managing other people. And that being said, I've also worked where we had someone who was good at management, but, you know, couldn't diagnose his way out of a wet paper bag that was put into more of a management role. And that was equally frustrating, because it's like, I appreciate that you know how to manage, but you have no idea what I'm doing here. And so, you know, sit down and shut
Yeah,
up. Let me show you how this is done.
it's just like going back and having to fill the gaps, right? In that
Yeah.
same sense where you've you have all these accolades, and you have all these um you're a great technician, all-star, 15, 20 years in, you're a master technician, certified, you got all the stuff, right? Oh, cool, this guy'd be perfect for management. Why? He's got zero management experience. And so you
Exactly.
put this guy with all this huge bubble of I don't know what you would call it. His
It's
big his
technical
glove.
expertise.
Yeah, yeah. He's got this big bubble built around him, and you pop his bubble and you put him in a completely different environment. Then you're wondering why he's not good at
And then
that
you wonder why
position.
he drowns.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
got no floaties on.
Yep. I worked for a shop that very much did that. There was a shop I worked for, ended up getting sold. It was bought out by another shop in town. And that shop brought in a guy, who I'm still friends with to this day, um, to be the shop foreman. And this guy was a really, really great technician. Like, his name is Dave. Dave is a great technician. Like, he's really well rounded. There's basically not a thing on this planet this man cannot fix, right? And he ran his own shop for a while, which he ran directly into the ground because this man is not a manager. Excellent at fixing cars, phenomenal, highly skilled technician, but not a manager. And the shop, as like these two shops are kind of merging and moving locations, like, all right, here's the new manager. And he's a terrible manager. Love the guy to death. Terrible manager. And there's this assumption, I think, in a lot of owners' heads that, well, if this person's really skilled at doing the job, surely they're good at managing people that do that job. And that is not how this works
It
at all.
it makes sense if you think about it, right? Like, because that's what you want. Like, if you have a QC,
Yeah.
like like that's a good position for your QC, right? You got to know
Yeah.
how this stuff goes together, to what to look for, so you can look for the mistakes. you
Mm-hmm.
know but that's still not the right, like, that's not where you put that, right? Like, that you don't want some qualified technician just looking over everybody's work. That doesn't make any damn sense. So you want to put them on a pedestal, and what's the pedestal is like the next position up, right? Oh, you'll be able to get, and granted, sometimes it works.
Yeah, and like I said, there's a balance because, and obviously, I think one of the other issues that I've seen is failing to define roles or positions, right? So it's like, okay, this guy's the foreman. Okay, well, what does that mean? Because when I say foreman, and when you say foreman, and when the next guy says foreman, like, we all might be thinking of different particular roles, right? So in my head, the foreman makes sure the shop is functioning smoothly, and making sure technicians aren't getting bogged down on repairs, and making sure that nobody's standing around, right? So there's never a technician that's waiting on a job or waiting on something. It's, if you're hung up on that, we'll get you onto something else. Keeping the whole machine flowing efficiently. And if you don't have a manager that understands how to do the job, it's very difficult to do that, right? But on the other hand, if you have a manager that only knows how to do the job, it's great because, like, technician gets bogged down, he is the man to go solve that problem. But hey, the guy over there is standing around, and the guy over there's been standing around for an hour. Oh, well, I was fixing this car. It's like, I don't know. I
Yeah,
just want
that's
more
where
me's.
yeah, that's where you become ineffective, and that's the key, like, to know how to manage that situation, to be everywhere at once, because you really have to be, in a sense, and you
Yeah.
can't be like called upon to go break a bolt loose, or called upon because the diagnosis is going south. Like, those are the things that you have to build processes around and systems to know, like, hey, when you get to a point, you're going to stop and you're going to send it in, and then I'm going to get to it on my list of things. But you have to say that in a way that
Yeah.
you don't sound like a dick, right? Don't bother me with that shit,
Exactly.
is what I want to say.
Exactly.
Coming to me to ask me that stupid question, like, those are the things and the thoughts that are in your head that you can't let come out of your mouth. And then you have to, like,
There has to be a
meanwhile,
filter.
well, meanwhile, in that frustration, you got to stop for a second and say, okay, so how do I write this down so that the next time they come to me with that sort of question that they need, or help, that they know how to be navigated, that doesn't seem like I'm being a dick, and then make them realize, like, oh, this is why, because I'm not the only person in the shop that has a problem right now. And that's the big one. They got to
Yeah.
start realizing, like, you're not the only one that's running an obstacle. We all have problems, right? And I can't, like,
Yeah.
I have to take them in priority. I have to look to it. You got to send it to me and I'll prioritize it. Maybe that problem you have, I know that Dave or whoever else can fix that. So I'll just dispatch it to him to go help you. And then I don't have to, right?
Exactly.
So that's like, but everyone wants to come to you when you're the lead or the manager or the owner because it's like, well, I don't know what to do, and he should know because he's on top. It's like nobody's on top, man.
Yeah,
We're all in this boat together.
exactly. Like if there's a hole in the boat, somebody has to plug it. I can't
Yeah.
plug all of the holes. But I think there's something that's really important that the previous shop that I worked for didn't have any processes written down or really laid out, which was super frustrating when we would end up in situations. So like my least favorite diagnostic is, hey, I've got a noise in my car. Like, okay, when does the noise happen? What
There's
does it sound like?
there's lots of noises.
Exactly, right? So we ran into this. I mean, it was probably it was it like it was happening several times a week. I get handed a ticket, customer states noise. Great. It's a 20-year-old car. It's making about 6 different noises. Which one would you like me to fix? And
Mm.
and we like it through a lot of pain and suffering and tears and hurt feelings and all that. We finally like put into place a process, which is if a customer comes in with a noise, either the shop foreman or an available technician goes on a short drive with them so we can identify the noise. Great. Now we're fixing noises the first time, right? And it's not, well, that wasn't, the squeaking wasn't what I was worried about. I was worried about the clunking. It's like,
What you're
but
worried about, what
all
I'm
of
worried
this, like,
about is two different things.
exactly, yeah. You're worried about that little bit of a squeak. I'm worried about the bang when I go over a bump. It's your ball joint about to come apart. But there's a lot of, I think, heartache and hurt feelings that can be avoided by simply laying out the processes and having standards. But then also kind of the flip side of that is, and this is what we ran into at my old shop, was if this is the standard and somebody's not meeting the standard, something has to happen. Because if we don't hold people to a standard, what's the point of having a standard at all?
Yeah, setting those expectations. That's huge. That's a big pivotal point for me as well is when you hire a technician, you hire a service advisor, you hire a porter, anybody, and you just assume that they know what that job position means.
Yeah,
Right? We're going back
obviously
to
it
the
says technician. They should know what that means.
assuming thing, right? Like, yeah, you should be able to fix the car. You should be able to do this. You should be able to answer the phone. You should be able to sell a job. You should be able to sweep. You should be able to mop. And, and sometimes it gets a little ridiculous. You start writing procedures on how to effectively mop the floor. You
I
might have gone a
just
little
to push
far. I
back on
don't
that
know.
narrative just a little bit. When I was like in high school, I did like a week long apprenticeship at this local shop, and I learned more in a week working in a shop than I did an entire year of high school shop class. So I actually stayed full time at this shop after high school, but I was mopping the floor, and the guy goes, "Dude, you're mopping wrong," and I was like, it's a mop. Like, how can I be mopping wrong? And he was like, you're taking 10 minutes to mop a bay. There's a faster way to do this. And he like shows me how to do it. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. Like, there is a better way to mop.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I
sorry.
guess to that point,
Carry on.
it's to your point, and like if I hadn't done wrestling all through high school, I probably wouldn't know how to effectively use a mop either. Like we all got to mop the maps after practice, so you get good at that. So another one of those life skills that you learn early on that you don't realize everybody else can
Again, and
learn.
we just assume like it's a mop. Everybody knows how to, and then you have young people coming in that have never touched a mop in their life, and that's what's wrong with America. But
So write a procedure for mopping, I guess. All right, I was wrong. I'm proved wrong again. Yes, that's true.
that's not my
Yeah, but
goal of coming on here.
it
I don't know.
happens,
I
man.
don't
That's
even know
what I
why I'm here.
do. I got no I got no problem being proved wrong. Literally happens to me all day long, all week long. But next year, I'll be smarter than I was this year, so that's all that
Well,
matters.
that's the thing is it's that drive. It's that drive to want to be better. I want to be better tomorrow than I was yesterday. I want to be better next year than I was now. And
Yeah.
when not everybody has that ambition, and I don't know I don't know if it's even possible to instill that ambition in somebody. But whenever we as professionals decide that we've made it, we don't need any more help, we don't need to learn anything else, we've got this figured out. Like when we stop learning, that's when we run into trouble. Like I've seen so many shops fall apart, or just be the, the classic shop owner that's working insane hours, can't find anybody to help him, is trying to fix all of the cars, but hey, at least his prices are cheap. It's like, that's how we end up in that position, is because when someone comes along and goes, hey, you need to raise your prices so that you're not so busy, so that you can actually make a living within a reasonable amount of time, they go, nah, well, this is how we've done it forever.
I'll lose
You've
all
got
my
to be willing to
customers.
learn and adapt.
You probably should learn use them all because they're not paying you enough, you know.
Yeah.
But to the point of like one step forward in the right direction to get a little bit more motivation out of the younger, I mean, pretty much everybody, is it really is setting expectations, and
Yeah.
it sounds worse than it is, but when you give someone clear cut expectations of exactly what you want them to do, and then you ask them if they want to be the best at doing that, everybody does. Doesn't matter what it is, mopping the floor, fixing a car, selling a
Yeah.
job, whatever it is, like whatever you're doing, your purpose in life at that day, that minute, right, is to be the best at it. And if it's not, then you got some interpersonal shit you need to work on. Most people want to be good at what they're doing. They want to have that sense of fulfillment. So if you have clear
Sure.
cut expectations, like, hey, you're a technician, you're here to bill 9 hours a day. That's what your goal is. That's what your job is. To build 9 hours a day, have less than a 2% comeback ratio, and kick ass, right? Like you're going to be an all-star
Yeah,
technician if you do that.
exactly. And when
And then they
we
strive for that.
give it, so I started listening to a business leadership podcast like 2 weeks ago, and I'm binge listening to this podcast. Highly recommended. It's the Entree Leadership Podcast. If you haven't heard it, definitely go check it
What
out.
is it?
If you're in the business, the Entree
What is it?
Leadership
Entree leadership. Okay.
Entree
Oh,
Leadership
like an
Podcast. It's by
entrepreneur. Okay.
Dave Ramsey's company or whatever. Anyways, and if we as managers, and obviously I'm hypothetically, because I'm not a manager, I'm just a technician, but if we as managers if we don't lay out what the expectation is, then we're setting up our people for failure, right? If this is like my least favorite part about starting a new job, is it's like, I don't know what the expectation is. I don't know where the brake clean is. I don't know what I'm expected to do when, we have, the shop I work for has a brake inspection, and I got chewed out like twice for not doing the proper procedure for what they sell as a brake inspection. It's like, you guys never told me how you want the brake inspection done, right? Like, you're asking me to do this brake release test, see if a caliper's hanging up. It's like, I have done 1,000 brake inspections a year for the last 8 years, and I've
So
never had a problem with that.
I want to just unpack that just a minute before you go on. So if you were to have, say, like training mods or training videos, do you feel like that would be useful? Like if you went to work for somewhere and they gave you a collection of videos that said this is our, and you watched another technician do the inspection the way they want you, do you feel like that would be fruitful, or do you feel like that'd be a waste of your time?
I feel like it depends on the technician. So there's different ways that people learn. So for me, here's the thing. I get paid on hours going out the door. So if I get told before you can turn any hours, you have to go watch 2 hours worth of videos, I'm like, I hate this. Like, I'm not going to want to absorb that. Right. If it's like, hey, your first week, we're going to pay you. The hours you build does not matter. We've got, day one, you've got, 3 or 4 hours worth of video that you're going to watch that walks you through our process to do things. And then you're not going to fix anything. You're just going to follow this, our top guy around and watch how we do these different things. I think that would be a benefit if it's in tandem with, okay, we've watched the video that talks about how we want to do whatever this thing is, and now you're going to go do it with someone that knows the process, so that you learn the process. Because when we fail to
That's
manage
good. Yeah.
expectations, it just leads to frustration all the way around. And when we have expectations managed, and we start to develop, trust, and when you develop a relationship of trust between a service advisor and a technician, inevitably, when conflict of some kind comes up, whatever that is, when you have trust in a relationship, that conflict becomes just looking for the truth, right? It's a quest for what's correct or what's right, and it's not about me beating you. It's about what is the correct thing here.
Yeah,
And
it's a team effort. We're all in this together.
exactly, yeah, we're all pulling that way. And if I'm pulling that way and you're pulling that way, like, of course we're going to have problems. And it's obviously it's easy to sit back after, you know, a long day and talk about how great, you know, it's just ideologically, like, wouldn't it be great if we just all pulled for the same team? And then you get into work
Well,
and somebody
you get
borrowed
in the
your tool
thick
and
of it,
didn't
yeah.
put it back, and you know, it's
Or the advisor calls you out on a bad diagnostic, and you lose
yeah, all of
sight
a
when
sudden
you're.
it's like, hang on, you want to come do this job?
Well, it's easy. It's easy with from the 30,000 foot view, right? Like you can take a step way back, and
Exactly.
you can
Exactly.
see, oh, these are the things you need to do. But when you're in there and you're deep in the middle and the thick of it, you're in the weeds. You don't see much that's
Oh yeah.
over, over your head. Um, and I have that problem too with high level diags that come in, and it gets kicked to me because this is going sideways pretty quick. I'm just going to take it on. I'm going to look at it. Before you know it, I'm 2 or 3 hours deep into
You got
it.
to pay
And
somebody to do that, my friend.
yeah, well, and sometimes when the shop's flowing, that's the difficult conversation, right? Because it's like, okay, well, I have all this like brake work, suspension work, and I got guys that are like just animals ready to go in there and knock it out, and like, so am I going to hang them up on this high level diag when I have all this gravy work to do,
Sure.
and they can bill the hours? Is like, so that's, and so, okay, you guys do that and I'll take on that assessment, and then I get buried in this assessment when I need to be in the office doing my thing, and I'm putting the blinders on again, right? I'm not taking my step back like I'm supposed to. So like you said, it's easy to talk about it, but when you're in the day-to-day operations, you're like, this just makes sense right now. I'm gonna go do that, and
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. And that's something that previous shop owners I've worked for, I think, have fallen into that trap of you're so busy working in the business that you're not able to kind of take a step back and work on the business. And when
Well, and
when
what
you're
that
able
even
to
is.
work on, yeah, I'm sorry, say that again.
Oh, and
What is
to define what that is, like,
exactly? Yeah,
that's the
yeah,
hard. How do I step back? What do you mean work on the business? What am I supposed to be doing? And it's like, then you
exactly. And
feel
that's
you feel
and
like you're not being useful because you're just sitting there at the computer at the office, and you're like,
right, yeah. Like
what
we
do I
make
do
money
right now?
when cars get fixed. If I'm not fixing cars, what are we doing?
Absolutely, yeah.
And it's yeah, it's frustrating because obviously it's easy to armchair quarterback this thing from here. But yeah, like you said, when you're in the trenches, when you're in the weeds of working on stuff, it's just we just got to turn these cars out. And sometimes, yeah, it doesn't work as perfectly as we can. But in those slow times when we have time to think about it, putting into place processes is really important because then when we get down in the weeds, we've got a roadmap to follow. Right, we're
Yeah.
not just flying by the seat of our pants. We can give we can assign work how it needs to be assigned. We can get stuff done. There's processes for when someone gets stuck. They're like, this is why having actual written out processes is so important. And I think a lot of especially small shop owners miss that because this is a direct quote from a previous shop owner. I asked, what is our process for this? And he's like, well, our process is what we do. I'm like, no, I mean, like, how are we supposed to do it? He's like, well, how you've been doing it is how you're supposed to do it. It's like, well, that doesn't tell me anything. Like, I've done it 3 different ways. Which one's right?
It's and it avoids decision fatigue, right? Because
Yes.
there's only so many decisions that you and I could possibly make in a day, and I don't care who you are. Like, there's a point in your life where you will face decision fatigue, right? And it'll be in the middle of the day, at the end of the day, Monday morning, whatever it is. You can't make another decision. Like, and as small as they are and as easy as they are, right? And as good as it feels to start directing that traffic, you get to the point where, like, well, this is the thousandth time I've had to answer this question. I've had to make this decision, right? And it's just the same thing when you're diagnosing a car, making those difficult. You got to make some difficult decisions, right? Like, you get to a point, you're 3 hours, 4 hours in. Like, you shouldn't be 4 hours in on a diagnostic, like, right? Like, dude,
On a
make a
1 hour
call.
diag, mind you.
Well, I mean, there's like what, a 0.01% of vehicles that really need like 5 hours of testing. You know what I'm saying? Like,
100%.
within
100%.
about 2 hours, you should be like on a clear cut path, and by hour three, at the most, right, you should be making a difficult decision. Like, all right, dude, it's time to cut and like call something out, right? And it's
Yeah.
hard to make a decision. That's the point I'm trying to get at. Like, and so when you have all this information coming to you all day, and you have to make all these decisions, and you have to make them quickly because you're paying all these people, and you don't want to take a step back and like think about the situation. You're just like, all right, done, 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 and I can move back to do what I'm doing, right? And you eventually, your brain just says that's it. Then you start making the wrong call. You're making wrong decisions. You're treating people the wrong way, and it's decision fatigue. And without those systems and processes, where a lot of that gets mitigated, go look in the binder. You look in the binder. Oh, there's my
Yeah.
answer. Perfect.
Check the handbook. Yeah.
It's right
That
there.
was, but a follow-up thought on I think the importance of having process, or an employee handbook, whatever you want to call it, but having a written binder or book of stuff is, I worked for a guy, and I hounded him for 2.5 years to like put together an employee handbook that lays out what the standards are and what some expectations are. And he finally gets us a handbook, right? Finally. And I'm reading through it, right? And I got handed to me as I was walking out the door home, and I like got home and I thumbed through it, and I got back into work, and I was like, according to this handbook, you should have fired me 6 months ago. Like, because this says if I clock in more than 10 minutes early without written manager approval, I can be terminated for that. And I've been clocking in 30 minutes early for 6 months. Like, it was like this generic corporate baloney he found on the internet, tweaked a couple of things, and went, all right, here's your handbook. It's like it wasn't really thought through or specific enough to actually be effective. And so it was like, it's not worth the paper it's printed on. So,
and who else is
processes are
guilty of that?
important. Yeah.
There's got to be. I know there's at least 10 people listening right now. They're guilty of that, because we all are, right? Like everyone
Well,
says,
yeah.
get an employee handbook together. So you go online and you freaking chat
What is an
GPT it, or
employee
you Google
handbook?
it.
And then, chat GPT, make me an
Print.
employee handbook for an auto repair shop, right? Like, just take a
Well,
few
then you got to
minutes.
review it. Like ask me right now what's in my employee handbook. I'll be honest. I'm not really 100% sure. Mainly because my wife does a lot of the updates in it. But the point is,
Sure.
like, go back through your handbook and read it every year and make updates to it, and every 6 months, even if you need to, right? Like, that's one thing that's also
Exactly.
missed. Yeah. If they want, if
Yeah. And
you want them to take it seriously, then you need to take it seriously.
exactly. And that kind of ties back to the earlier thought of, if you're not going to hold people to a standard, there's no point in having any standards at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like, a standard is worthless if if nobody knows what that standard is. Like, is it even a standard? And if we don't hold people to that standard.
Yeah, and that's where the fuse on the dynamite gets lit, right? It's those
Yeah.
small things that you know as the owner, you know as the manager, you wrote this stuff out, and you can see someone getting away with it, and you're letting it slip, and you're letting it slip, and you're letting it slip, and it's like the give and take, right? Like, so you're giving a little bit, and the technician's taking a little bit, the advisor's taking a little bit, right? Like, or the employee, we'll just put it that way, the employee's taking a little bit because you're giving a little bit, right? And it's that give and take, give and take. Like, before you know it, you just blow up. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
you get to the point where like something stupid happens, or like, so they show up 10 minutes late, which they've done for the last 100, for the 102nd time, but you've had a hard morning and now you're ready to like get after them, and it's like, that's ineffective leadership. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Exactly.
but and you're
Exactly.
so freaking fired up, and you're like, this is it. This is the morning I'm gonna blow up on them. And meanwhile, they're like, dude, this is like, I've been doing this a
Yep.
hundred
I did
times.
this
Like,
yesterday and
yeah,
every
like
day for
what?
the last month, and it was fine. And now and that comes back to having the standard, right? And if this is the standard, an effective manager should be like, hey, here's the deal. Whatever, 7 a.m. is your start time. If you're not here by 7 a.m., then that, we're going to count that as, a late absence, or however you want to call it. We're going to count that against you. And if this happens, if this happens more than 3 times in a month, you're going to get fired. What can we do to help support you in making sure that that doesn't happen? Like, how can we as management support that team member to meet the standard that we're laying out for them, right? So it's not just get your butt out of bed 10 minutes earlier and show up to work on time, because that's easy to say. Well, my breakfast took
Yeah.
longer to make this morning than it normally does, and I was 30 seconds late. It's like, how we as there's a concept that I heard on a podcast, which is a little more for the owner mindset. So more for you than for me. But also it applies to everybody, but don't take this the wrong way. But everything is your fault.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And if Andrew is late to work, that's Andrew's fault. If Andrew's late to work because there was a crash on the freeway, that's still my fault because I didn't leave with enough buffer time to allow for some unexpected things, right? If
Mm-hmm.
if you have cultivated a culture where we don't really care about times, you don't get to be upset when people overrun their lunch break or they show up late to work or they leave early. It's like, if you've created that culture that says the time clock doesn't matter, you don't get to be upset when people take advantage of that.
Yeah, just because you had a bad day.
Yeah.
And if you're struggling for ways to like to put some sort of disciplinary action behind that, and it doesn't have to be like I'm going to give you 3 times then you're fired, right? Like one thing I've realized is that just having a conversation is like enough. Like you can say, "Hey, what happened?" Right, and you give them a pass. Like I got no problem with that, man. If you show up 10 minutes late once a month, I'm not like, I get it. Like it's fine. I don't
Yeah.
care. I'm gonna talk about it. What happened? Right, and it's gonna be quick. Like, oh, whatever. So and so. Make sure it's just not something that doesn't make sense. Right. Like I just want to know you're being honest with me, and then we're good.
Yeah.
Happens again. It's like
Exactly.
we're gonna go in the office and we're gonna sit down and just like you said, we're gonna sit down and talk and then we're gonna find out how I can help you not be late again. And we're not leaving the office until we come up to with a solution. Like nobody wants to do
Yeah.
that, right? But that
Well,
is so
and when
effective.
we exactly, but when we as managers are more, we have those private one-on-one conversations with our people more often. When you were 10 minutes to like when going and chatting with a manager in his office or in a one-on-one setting is not abnormal. When as managers it's normal to be like, hey man, let me talk to you in the office for a minute. It's not because you're in trouble. And we build this culture of like, how can we work together as a team when it's easier to have the more difficult conversations if we're regularly communicating with our people, right?
Good
If
point. Yep. Yep.
if it's like once a year the boss calls you in and goes, okay, we're going to sit down and have a performance review, it's like, this is uncomfortable for everybody. And if you tell me, hey, this thing you've been doing for a year, it sucks, stop doing it, I feel like crap because I've been doing this thing for a year. Whereas if, once a week, I don't know, once. So I worked for a shop that every Wednesday, so we closed the shop down for an hour for lunch, and the boss bought lunch, and we just had a company sponsored lunch and kind of meeting. Just went over, our numbers, where we're at for the week, what are some things we're doing well, what are some things we need to work on. And there was this like time where we sat down and talked about the way things are run. If somebody had a problem, we could voice it at that meeting, and it was like every week we were doing this, and so stuff got fixed. It was like, hey, the AC machine is going to need a filter this week. It's like, we can get on that and get that fixed. That doesn't get, lost going up through the chain or whatever. Like there was
Mm-hmm.
a regular process. And if I needed something from the owner, it wasn't abnormal for an employee to walk into the owner's office and close the door behind them and have a conversation. Like that's how it works, and when we cultivate that culture of it's okay to have conversations, even if it's to correct bad behavior, when that's normal, it's much easier to have the harder conversations.
Yeah, I think
I
it's
feel like
it's
that was a lot
another.
of word salad and maybe didn't make sense, but
No, it makes
maybe you know
it,
what I'm
it makes
talking about.
perfect sense because that is another thing that we assume, right? Like a lot of us, I think most of us have an open door policy as a shop owner
Yeah.
or as a manager, and even anybody else in the shop. You just assume if someone has a problem with you, they'll come up and talk to you and tell you about it. Like we all assume as human beings, right? Like, well,
Yeah.
if someone has a problem with what I'm doing, they'll come up and tell me about it. No, they won't. Like
Yeah,
nobody
not
will.
so much, really.
95% of the population is very, very does not want a confrontation, especially with someone they barely know. Like,
Yeah,
and then above that, someone that they work with, that they see every day. They don't want that confrontation because obviously in your mind, you build it
exactly.
up to be a lot worse than it's going to be. Right. And so to
Yeah,
your point, like having just an open door policy is just not enough. Like just assuming that that your guys or your employees will come up and tell you when there's a problem going on, they will not, right?
yeah,
And just as much as being on the other aspect, I'm not going to go point out every wrong thing that they're doing, right? I'm not going to do that either.
100%.
But it's still one of those things that you just assume that it's going to happen. Like, and same with that. If I'm doing something wrong, the boss will come tell me. Well, I probably should, right? And
I
I got to
mean,
get a little better
yeah,
about
and that's
picking my battles, right? But it's like one of those
yeah.
things that everyone just assumes if they're doing something wrong, they will get told that they're doing it wrong, and it doesn't work that way. You have to have that open communication that's really, really hard to build.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like, and I feel like a lot of people when there's a difficult conversation to be had, a lot of us just kind of like we get inside of our own head and we just kind of psych ourselves out, thinking about it. I had a situation a couple weeks ago where I had to I had like a couple of different out of state trips where I had to take time off, and one of these trips I had a meeting, it went kind of sideways. We ended up having to reschedule, and so I had to call my boss and tell him, hey, I need to take another trip, and take half of a week off for the third time in a month, and it's going to put me over my vacation days, but this is really important to me. I need to do it. And I spent like 30 minutes psyching myself up for this, and I was really worried about it. I was like, what is he going to say? What if he says no? Like, this is really important. I got to do this. And I finally was like, this is dumb. I got to call him. I call him. He answers the phone. I was like, hey, something came up. I need a couple extra days off. And he's like, yeah, no big deal. We'll make it work. Like, it was like I had gotten myself so worried about what is he going to say or what's going to happen or how am I going to communicate this. And it was like, it was a 2-minute phone call and it was no big deal.
Yeah.
And I like went through all of that worry for nothing.
You can even take a step further and say you get to the point you don't even make the phone call. So then you go to work and then you're pissed off at him because he wouldn't let you take the time off. And you're like, you didn't even call me, man.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean? Like,
exactly.
You're like, you got this animosity. Like, dude, why are you so pissed off? It's like, because I needed some extra days and you didn't give it to me. Like, you never asked.
You got to ask, bro.
Oh, I guess I didn't make that phone call, did I? I just assumed you were gonna say no.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like that's where cultivating an environment where open communication is the normal, and not and again, like you said, not just saying we have an open door policy, like you can come talk to me whenever. It's like nobody does that, And so when you're intentional about cultivating that conversation between team lead and team member, it's better for everybody because I'll come to work and I'm all grumpy because like, by golly, you didn't order the right part for me. And I'm grumpy at that. And it's like, did I ever ask for the right part? Or whatever the situation is. It's like, you can't be mad because of what you think someone will say. Like, it doesn't make any sense that you would be grumpy because, well, they're probably going to say no, or they're probably going to whatever. Like, communicate. Communication solves so many problems, and I talk a lot, obviously. Yeah, that's the other really important
onerous
part.
on yourself to say, you know what? Is there something I can do to solve this versus getting mad or complaining about it? What can I do to help solve this? Right.
Yep.
And that's every day. It's for me. It's like, what could I have done to change? Like, because there's always something you could have done differently to have a different outcome than where you're at right now. Like for everything, like just in life in general, but definitely in the shop, right? Like,
oh yeah,
if I wasn't, stressed out about that, I would have made a better call on this. If I was like, there's always something.
If I had checked that fuse first, we could have found the problem.
Yeah, and then you go down the what if rabbit hole, and that's a whole different mental construct you got to keep yourself out of. But you made the bad call, move on with your life, right? But like, if you have enough owners to know, like you made the mistake, like own the mistake. It's cool. I won't do it next time, but don't lose sleep over it.
Own it, learn from it, move on. Don't sit and dwell on it. And that I think that applies to every aspect of your life. Really, it's like we all make mistakes. We're all human. I can go around and get on all the podcasts that I want, and like I still make bad calls from time to time. I still screw stuff up, and
oh yeah, I have absolutely no idea what the hell I'm doing as a shopman. I got no idea. I'm learning every freaking day, man. Like I learn recording these things with you people more than anything else I do, right? So it's like I gain more out of this than the people listening, to be honest. Like I have literally no idea what the fuck I'm doing. But I'm learning. See, that's the important thing.
On the other hand, I know no, I'm kidding. I don't know anything. I've watched a lot, I've observed a lot, I listened to a lot, and it's that's the thing is if you're not willing to learn, what's the point? We had a one of my, I remember what his position is. I think he's the shop manager, not the foreman, the shop manager. Came through. We had a sheet from one of our vendors. It's a class coming up, and it was like, hey, do you have any interest in going to this class? And it's like it's something voltage. It's an electrical diag class. I don't remember the details of it. And like half the guys are like, well, I don't know. It's it's after work, and it's like, dude, it's free food and learning. Like, just go. Like, you tell me there's a class. It's like, am I dead? No, great. I'm going to the class. Like,
There's no reason not to. What are you gonna go and watch
yeah,
TV?
Yeah,
Like,
and I mean,
this
like,
will be with
I
you
have a
forever.
family, so it's like I want to spend time with my kids, but also, you know how much more money I make now than I did 4 years ago because I went to every single class I could get my hands on, and I increased my skill set, I increased my knowledge, I got better at what I do, and now I make more money. Not that life is all about money, but like the guys that are like, oh, well, I can't really squeeze class into my schedule. It's like, that's why I'm up, 15, 20% this year over last year, and you're up 0% because I'm going, I can do more. I got to use on just like to jump down a little tiny rabbit hole with a lab scope because I'm kind of a nerd and I like to think I'm good at it, and I'm not, because every time I get in trouble, I just have to call my good buddy, Sean Tipping, over from the Automotive Diagnostic Podcast. Quick plug for his podcast. If you like cars, go listen to that. Anyways,
he's got awesome content for sure.
Oh yeah. It was funny. I went on his podcast almost a year ago because I had this scope trace and this diag, and I was like, I don't understand this, and nobody in my shop can talk about this stuff on this level with me, and I got to talk to somebody. And he schooled me, and it was a humbling experience. But anyways, I had this car last week. Actually, it's in my bay right now. It's a 2016 Ram 1500. And the customer's concern was a misfired idle that goes away when you come up off idle. And this truck has been to one or two other shops where they have installed 16 spark plugs, all 8 coils. They did a compression test, and it tested good. And
please tell me I got a PCM.
They either swapped or replaced fuel injectors. It doesn't look like they put a PCM in it. I think they said, we don't know, we're sorry, before we put a PCM in. Anyways.
Well, I guess the PCM would have been like a $9,000 bill because you would have had to done all the modules.
Yeah.
Would have been a hell of a parts cannon. Holy shit.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, and then you come to me and I go, this should be a 2-hour diag, not like our normal diag is, is a 1 hour diag. And I'm like, well, first of all, the picoscope doesn't come out for an hour. Like, it's a $4,000 tool, my guy. Like, we're not breaking that out. Anyway, but long story short, I was into the diagnostic portion of it. So we do our digital vehicle inspection is, we call it a courtesy inspection, which means that I don't get paid for that, which is a whole nother can of worms that I would love to dive into, but we don't have time on this podcast for that. But in actual diag time, I was into this diag for like sub 30 minutes and had a 90% confidence call, did a relative compression test with the scope and an amp clamp. We had a cylinder that was high on compression and made the call that there's only one thing or one set of components that can cause high compression on one cylinder, and that is if there's an exhaust valve that's not opening all the way. And that would track with our symptom. And so we sold it as a pull the valve cover and check it. And with the valve cover off, cranking it, you can see that the exhaust valve on that cylinder doesn't move as far. And I don't even know where we're going with this. The point is, pay for good diag, and I got lost with my mental thought. The point is, I'm working on this stupid truck right now, and I hate it.
Well,
It's just
yeah,
dumb.
watching the pressure waveforms and knowing what that stuff is, right? So that's
Yeah, and it's like,
that's probably what Sean showed you. Is on. It's like this is how you can watch the peaks and the valleys when you're looking at the pressure
yeah,
transducer.
yeah, and well, and I didn't even go to a pressure transducer. I just put an amp clamp on the battery cable and cranked the engine,
Okay.
and I had like I said what I would determine to be a conclusive call in a reasonable amount of time, and my service advisor is looking at this squiggle, going, "You want to sell him a $6,000 or $7,000 repair based on a squiggly line?" It's like, yeah, dude, I do. Anyways, I took it apart today, and the roller lifter for the number 3 exhaust cylinder was like the needle bearings had locked up, and the wheel was all messed up, and the cam lobe was eaten about 70% of the way into nothing.
Wow.
Took it apart today and found the failure, but it's you've got to have good people. You've got to be able to communicate and trust your good people, and it's okay if somebody knows more than you.
Yep.
Like, just because you don't understand it doesn't mean it's not correct, and give them enough rope to hang themselves with. Like, I don't know.
Fair enough.
Like,
That's
I don't know.
about
If
it.
I don't
Yeah.
understand something, it's like, give it a shot, see what happens. If we fix the car, we fix the car. Great.
Make the difficult decision, damn it. Make the call. That's it.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again for
Yeah.
coming on, man. I do appreciate your time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lots of good
It was,
insight, and yeah.
we definitely talked in circles for a little while, and I would apologize for that, but like, I don't know about you, man, but I worked all day, and
That's what we do.
yeah. Get to the end
The
of the day,
ADD
man, I'm
kicks in
tired.
hard, so it's all good.